Hi there. Last night I was at a TAG Heuer dinner, and after too many bottles of wine, the question was asked, Andrew, what do you really think about the Aquaracer collection? And I said, well, obviously I love the Solargraph. I wear the Solargraph all the time. It is slim, it fits well on a double pass NATO, ticks all my boxes. The main collection, look, I was just really honest. I said, it's too thick, it's too big, the lug-to-lug is too much for me. And they all smiled, and that's not the reaction I was expecting. And that's because pretty much all of my issues with the previous collection of the Aquaracer, which improved on the version before. So this is a refinement year after year, but I think they've hit on something that puts it in a really attractive spot. Let's start with the lug-to-lug. This is just 48 millimeters lug-to-lug versus the previous 50.3. That makes a world of difference on the wrist. If you don't know what lug-to-lug means, it means basically from the outer extremity of the lug, the distance between the 2 points is your lug-to-lug. Now, because this bracelet drapes straight off the case, we don't need to take into account any of that fixed first link issue, which happens with your AP Royal Oak, with your Zenith Defy Diver, with watches that have integrated bracelets. Often that first link is giving it must be included in the lug-to-lug measurement. So this at under 50 is right in a Goldilocks zone. Now, the less important measurement that many people get wrong is the actual size of the watch. The size of the previous Aquaracer was 43 millimeters. That's been shaved down to 42. Now, this has much less of an impact on wearability than lug-to-lug, but it still does. If you look here on my 7-inch wrist, 42 millimeters is really a sweet spot size for a sports watch. It's definitely not a sports watch that's going to, go quietly into the wrist and disappear. It's very much large and somewhat in charge, but it's the lug-to-lug difference. That extra 2.3 millimeters has really put this more squarely on my wrist, and it will on yours. Now, the all-important height measurement has had less of a shaving. This is 12 millimeters thick now versus 12.5 on the previous model, and that's partly to do with the change in movement. TAG Heuer do not claim that this is an in-house movement, and for that they should be applauded. They are calling out the fact that they modify Salita movements with a company called AMT, and this is what they're calling the TH3100, which is still putting it in their shorthand of TAG Heuer, but it is fair and square a modified Salita movement that has been modified specifically for TAG Heuer, which explains that 0.5 millimeter difference in height, which again, when you get down to things like the thickness of a watch, 1/10 of a millimeter is a mile. So this is still an improved height difference, but it isn't the biggest measurement change, which is definitely that lug-to-lug. So putting it on the wrist, on my 7-inch wrist, this 12 millimeters, I would say 12 millimeters is actually a really reasonable size for a sports watch. Unless you're getting into ultra thin territory, this is something that still has wrist presence, but doesn't monster the wrist. The most looked at part of a watch is the dial. And there is a big change here. And it's something that I think it's quite unlike TAG Heuer to do something this subtle. On the previous version, we had the garage door channels on the dial. Now we have a sort of a wavy line. And they've achieved this effect that, again, I think it's more in Grand Seiko territory than in Omega territory, which is applying a layer of lacquer to this wavy pattern that gives it, I would say, a slightly watery, translucent appearance that is more refined than I'm used to from TAG Heuer. TAG Heuer make bold sports watches with really obvious and strong design touches. This is more nuanced, I would say, more Grand Seiko than Omega. I think it's a really nice move. What do you think? Now, while this wavy pattern on the dial is uniform, the way that it plays with the different tones of color on it is really different. So on this Batman GMT with the blue and black bezel, we have a midnight blue dial color that is really quite mysterious. The wave pattern doesn't present as obviously, and I tell you what, I'd be nervous diving into these seas. There is a big shark waiting underneath these mysterious waters because you can't see very far into it. These waters I'm much more comfortable diving into. This is your standard blue. This is, again, bringing in that the light plays differently across these lines. So it almost has a mother of pearl effect. So TAG must be applauded for this dial upgrade. It is so much more animated than the garage door that we had in the previous version. However, if you like the black version, you are going to see that it doesn't have that lacquered, watery effect as much. To me, this almost looks like bark. This is really sucking the light in. You're getting to see the corrugations on the dial, but it doesn't have that. This is not an ocean effect. It really changes on the black. And it also changes dramatically on the green, where again, I'm getting some sort of a birch tree or some sort of a bark effect on this green. There's or maybe cane or bamboo. It's a natural appearance, but it isn't that ocean feel on the midnight blue and the blue. So of them all, there is a clear winner for me in terms of the dial and the way that this all comes together. This reminds me a little bit of our Night Surfer. So I've got a bit of a sentimental twinge to this. There's almost a gradient to this midnight blue dial, though I'm imagining that. I'm just making that happen. But this really works superbly on the GMT model. The minute hand has been in the gym. The minute hand has been intermittent fasting. It is slimmer. Meanwhile, the hour hand has been bulking. The hour hand has been bulking and also getting a tap because it has a little line halfway down the hour hand that almost creates a TAG Heuer shield effect on the tip of the hour hand. And the flange, which is or rail of the watch, which is the minute track inside the dial, is a little sleeker. The case, now not only is the case slimmer, it also has improved ergonomics on the wrist. It does feel better on the wrist, to be honest. It feels like it hugs the wrist a little better. Now that's because we have a new case shape and we also have new sharper crown guards, which reference the Reference 844, the original TAG Heuer dive watch that led to the Aquaracer collection. Overall, just really listening to what customers want here. There was feedback consistent with mine that perhaps it was a little chunky and it was not sitting on the wrist with the sleek connection that you want from a sports watch. These things have all been listened to and this is the result. In terms of the bracelet, we have a new bracelet design, which is fully brushed, giving it that tooly look. Okay, my favorite thing about the bracelet is this on-the-fly adjustment system that is just so simple. There's 2 push pins on both sides of the folding clasp. You just push them in and adjust it. And that is I'm gonna say at a guess, that's about 10 millimeters of adjustment. It's big. That's more than you will need, put it that way. There's no way your wrist could swell from that to that. Though I challenge you, maybe get to the gym and try it out. Overall, TAG Heuer have taken a leaf out of Tudor's book by listening to what people want, refining the offering, and then offering it the new collection in just, don't bore us, get to the chorus. What were the most popular Aquaracer colorways? We had black, we had green, we had blue, and then we had this midnight Batman GMT. All of these are the hits from the Aquaracer collection, and they're now much more comfortable to wear, and frankly, they're just better. So, what do you think of the new Aquaracer collection? Has that shifted you? Were you holding out on buying an Aquaracer because it was too chunky? If so, I strongly suggest get down and put one on, just like I just did. Thank you for watching Time+Tide. Do follow Time+Tide Tribe, our other channel for behind the scenes action, and I'll see you on the next one.